figured that this was going to be the next part for my next video. 45's tariffs only work if Americans pay for them. 45 is fond of saying China is paying the tariffs he imposed, and a lot of journalists, including me, this is the guy that's doing the article, so you got to think of it in his view, are fond of pointing out the tariffs are actually being paid by Americans. Specifically, they are paid by American importers of foreign goods who presumably seek to pass the cost of the tariff on to end customers. The New York Times points to recent economic research on 45's tariffs, including two papers estimating that 100% of the cost of tariffs is being borne by American consumers. One of the research teams determined this by looking at changes in the prices for highly specific goods. They found products not subject to new tariffs had approximately flat prices, while products subject to new tariffs went up in price approximately proportionally to the tariffs imposed. That's pretty straightforward. Americans pay. But other commentators like to point out that this isn't the law of nature. The person who remits a tax is not necessarily the person who bears the economic cost of the tax, as you can already tell from the fact we're assuming a tax paid by importers gets passed due to consumers. What if it gets passed somewhere else? For example, what if it gets passed back to the Chinese exporter, who must cut his prices so the American importer is still interested in buying his goods? Tyler Cohen, for example, takes issue with headlines like China isn't paying. Cohen argues convincingly that China is likely to face substantial economic costs from the tariffs in the long run, but I don't think that observation is in conflict with the idea that Americans bear the tariff costs in full. That's because there is more than 100% of the tariff to go around. Tariffs are explicitly designed to create what is called a dead weight loss. Not only do people pay the tariff, they also make inefficient prices to avoid paying the tariff, reducing economic output, so the economic cost of a tariff exceeds the amount actually collected by the government, while the American consumers can pay the whole amount of the tariffs of actually collected, and there could still be plenty of economic loss left for China to bear to. The assumption that tariffs are borne by American consumers is embedded in 45's eagerness to impose the tariffs in the first place. The point of protectionist trade policy is to make it more economical to produce goods in the United States. This is where the dead weight loss comes from. Economic actors seeking to avoid the tariff move forward producing things somewhere other than the place where it costs less, and this reduces overall economic output. This only works if the tariff is allowing American producers to sell at a higher price than they could if they faced tariff-free or lower tariff Chinese competition. If Chinese producers ate 100% of the cost of the tariff, then Chinese goods wouldn't go up in price for American buyers. American manufacturers wouldn't gain any pricing leverage, and American consumers wouldn't have any reason to change what they buy. If Americans didn't really pay the tariffs, it would be completely pointless. Of course, tariff advocates could say higher prices are desirable, though 45 won't say that out loud. Those higher prices go to support an American industry. They reflect the fact that tariffs have protected certain American workers from competition with Chinese people willing to work for less. Unfortunately, there are offsetting effects. Higher prices reduce disposable income, meaning people would buy less of something, costing jobs somewhere. And the retaliating tariffs and economic weakness in China lead to less demand for American exports. In the medium term, Cohen thinks the tariff burden on American consumers will abate as production moves away from China to countries poorer than China, which are not subject to punitive tariffs such as Vietnam. If this is true, it would mean Americans are paying less in tariffs because less in tariffs are being paid overall, not because the cost of the tariffs start being borne by someone in China. And if this is true, it again undermines the purpose of 45's tariff policy, which presumably is to shift production toward the United States, not toward Vietnam. In practice, the economic effect of 45's tariffs have not been especially large, at least so far. Both of the papers discussed by the Times found a welfare loss to Americans of about $20 per person from 45's tariffs in 2018. This is why higher prices of specific goods, particularly affected by tariffs, such as washing machines, have not led to a perceptible overall spike in inflation. But Americans are paying, and as the tariffs get bigger, we will be paying more.